All right, welcome back to Wildfire Insider. Throughout the day today, we're just going to talk about kind of the overall wildfire picture in California. I think the top story again is going to be the Mosquito fire. That looks to be where we're seeing the most smoke right there, so we'll check out the recent numbers there. We'll find out where some of that growth was yesterday. We'll look at the weather forecast to find out what kind of conditions we can expect over the next few days, and that's where I think some of the great news comes in. I was just looking at the weather models last night because I was broadcasting at KSBW, or broadcast meteorology at KSBW, and I saw this coming in. It could be our first real rain of the season. So we'll talk about the potential for that, as well as the impacts that could have on wildfire season. So let's just come to the satellite imagery. I think this is always the best place to start because you can just immediately get a picture of what's going on. First thing I noticed is how poor the air quality still is throughout much of Nevada. So, sorry Nevada for all of our California wildfire smoke. Looks like most of the smoke that we're producing on the Mosquito fire is coming off that east side still, and it does look like it was actually still pretty active overnight, which is somewhat surprising because we had very high relative humidity last night. When we were looking at the models yesterday, our overnight recoveries were going to be as high as 70%. So pretty amazing that this fire is still able to burn when you have that much moisture in the air. But I guess it just tells you how dry a lot of the fuels are in this area and just how many fuels there are in this area. If you need proof of that, we can just look at this live shot right here where you can see how many fuels are on the ground. And then this also shows the eastern side of the fire where what time is it right now? We're at about 11:07 right now, and we're seeing some activity here. I'd say not as much as yesterday, and I'm actually not expecting as much activity as yesterday. We were looking at the weather forecast last night. It was supposed to be cooler, there was supposed to be more moisture, and there was supposed to be less winds. So those are three great things to hear for not having a crazy wildfire day. But again, I kind of skipped the intro. I just kind of got carried away here. This is a Wildfire Insider. What we do here is normally I make like a 10 to 20 minute video on the top wildfire of the day and then a 2-minute concise version of that. Whereas Wildfire Insider is kind of the research process of me preparing to make those videos. So I usually prepare for like 30 minutes to an hour just looking at the entire wildfire picture going on. And now I just do it live because we can all kind of figure it out together. And it's actually more helpful because when you guys put in questions or comments in the live chat, kind of tells me what we're interested in. And then a lot of times too, you guys are able to say things that I didn't even think to look at. So kind of a collaboration to see what's going on with wildfire. And then finally, my name is Holt Hanley. I'm a broadcast meteorologist at KSBW on the Central Coast. I'm a wildfire researcher for San Jose State, and then I also make these wildfire forecasting videos on YouTube. But enough about me. Let's check out the Mosquito fire. Looks like it's up to 64,000 acres, 64,159 to be exact, and 20% containment. So first thing I want to do is get that containment map up because it usually takes about 3 minutes to load for whatever reason. We'll go to maps and I want to see if we picked up any containment yesterday because that's kind of one of the misleading things about containment right here is technically we could have increased where we had some containment yesterday, but because the overall fire perimeter grew, the number stayed the same. Kind of a interesting little math aspect right there. But let's first just look at where some of the growth was on this fire yesterday, just to kind of orient ourselves. We have the Mosquito fire right here. Then we have Lake Tahoe over here. We can actually measure it. I just found out that there's a ruler on Google Earth. So looks like we're in miles here. Let's go from the closest point of the Mosquito fire to the closest point of Lake Tahoe. Looks to be about 24, maybe 22 miles. So we've got a lot of distance between the Mosquito fire and Lake Tahoe. So To be honest, that's not really something I'm too concerned about as of right now. I think the main area I'm still concerned about is it jumping over where we have this firing operation. But before we really dive into the details, a lot of times it's just helpful to click on and off today's data to see just the overall picture of where some of that growth was. So I'm not seeing any new growth on this Foresthill side, which is great news there, because it was 2 days ago where that spot fire just took off towards Foresthill, went right up against Foresthill Road, and that was quite a scary situation there. But yesterday we had pretty cool temperatures, we had a lot of moisture in the air, and it was a completely different story that totally calmed down on that side. Now I'm going to click it on and off and really focus on the east side here. Yeah, not that much growth. It looked like we had a pretty calm day, and some of that up there, I would imagine, is firing operations. They're just trying to connect all that in with, I think we also have the American burn scar right there. I just actually want to confirm that that's the American burn scar. Let's turn on fire history. All right, so you can kind of see what they're doing. When you look at all that activity right there, right off the bat, you might think, oh man, it's just taking off on the northern edge. And that could be a possibility. I'm not ruling that out, but I would imagine that's actually firing operations. Just based on what we're seeing on this map right here, how we have those little dots right there, I don't think those are spot fires. I think those are firing operations because you can see kind of their strategy here. They're putting in this big line right here. Let's actually just go fire perimeter for a second. So they put in this big line. I know that was all firing operation. And then you look at the American burn scar right here, and it looks like they're just perfectly putting in another line to kind of tie in that firing operation with the American burn scar. So that if the fire keeps pushing up in here, it just burns out this little pocket in here, and then just there's nowhere else for it to go. No fuel on this side because they already burned all that out. There's hopefully they keep doing the firing operations over here, so then there's none right there. And then as it goes into the American burn scar, it does look like there's some fuels in here because 2013 is long enough ago for there's some fuels to burn or for some fuels to grow back. But overall, it'll be slower growth, and usually younger growth has more moisture in it too. There's less dead material, so helps to slow the fire down as well. So overall, looking pretty good right there. So when we see all those red stars, I don't really think at this point that's anything to worry about as of right now. So let's just go back to over here. And let's see if we can see where some of that growth was again. Most of it looks like it's on this eastern side, and that actually makes sense. That's what we were thinking would happen when we were talking yesterday during Wildfire Insider video. I think we all came to the conclusion most of the growth was going to be on this eastern side right here, and especially down here. The reason for that, we had those same southwesterly winds yesterday afternoon, and actually some gustier winds than we'd had in previous days. But when we look at fire history, you notice that has the American burn scar up there. Down here has the 2020 point fire, whereas this whole area in here has no fire history. So there's just a lot of fuels that haven't burned for a really long time. And then if we zoom in here, you can also see some of the topography that we're dealing with in here. So what likely happened on this yesterday, we can turn it on and off, see where that growth was. What likely happened was it came down in here, and then throughout the day you get those winds going up canyon, and then also fire just likes to go uphill. So then it was able to rush up that ridge line right there. And that could be a little spot fire right there. That spot fire would likely push uphill throughout the day today. And then overall, I'd say just based on the information we've seen so far, most of our activity, once again today, is going to be on this eastern side. But I would say less activity than yesterday because we're supposed to be cooler, there's supposed to be more moisture, and there's supposed to be less wind. So we'll look at that in a second, the whole weather forecast. And I think that's going to be maybe the most exciting part of this video because there's a chance for our first kind of real rain of the season for California. Can't get too excited yet though, because a lot of times these kind of events get our hopes up and then just kind of fall apart at the last second. But right now, models are looking pretty good, so we'll definitely check that out. First, I want to look at this 20% containment. We got the containment map right here. Wow, yeah, so look at that firing operation that goes all the way up here. And it's not only a firing operation, they have completed dozer line on it too, which you see with those like black X's on there. And then they've also completed a dozer line all the way up that perfectly mirrors where we start to run into the American burn scar. So this is, I'm going to turn those off again. So you imagine there's dozer line all the way up there, firing operation all the way up there, some new firing operations in here, and then also it looks like based on this map, what map are we looking at? This one, sorry, I have like 20 tabs open. Then we also have completed dozer line all the way along the American burn scar right there, and then this will be updated with some of those new firing operations as well. So they're basically just creating what I believe they call a catcher's mitt to basically, if this fire keeps pushing up here, it'll run into all of this area where the fuels have been cleared out, and then it'll run into this area where there's a completed dozer line. They're clearing the fuels out, and then even if it jumps over, we have the American burn scar. So coming down here, that was one I didn't notice yesterday. They have a whole bunch of completed dozer line right in there. A ton all around Foresthill. That kind of paints the picture of why that spot fire a couple days didn't just go straight through Foresthill. And honestly, that was so amazing that we should just check that out again, because this, I'd say, was one of the scariest situations that we've had this season when on any wildfire in California. So we'll turn off the last 2 days of growth, and we'll go back to where this was when we had our data on September 13th. What happened was that spot fire jumped over the Middle Fork American River and then just took off uphill, went quickly to over a few hundred acres, and you could see how close it came to Foresthill High School right here. Literally just came right up. Now I do know it burned some vehicles in there. I saw some footage of that when I was at KSBW. We also show packages from KCRA, and one of the packages that we showed some of these vehicles in here burning, but again, didn't get across Foresthill Road, and then it also didn't just rush in to where we have hundreds of structures in Foresthill itself. And the big reason for that is they'd been preparing for this for a number of days, and all those black X's that you see in there are completed dozer line. Now I do also notice we have one right down there coming back into the Middle Fork American River. So I want to see what that would look like on this map. I should zoom out a little. And let's turn on all the recent growth. So it looks like they also completed a dozer line down here to basically tie this back into the Middle Fork American River. Now, the reason I'm actually not too concerned about that one is when we look at the camera of the spot fire, we'll be able to see that the spot fire yesterday was not all that active. So that's a decent amount of smoke right there. Let's see what this imagery looks like. I don't think this one's pointed at the spot fire. Think it might be this one. Bald Mountain El Dorado 2. You know, actually I do remember it was Bald Mountain El Dorado 2 that was pointed at the spot fire, but it looks like they've turned that camera around. Yeah, it's looking more at the northeastern side of the fire now. So, not really showing that spot fire anymore, but that's most likely because there's just not that much activity happening on it. We do see that little column popping up though, so I want to look at just a 15-minute time lapse. You notice there's just like a smoke layer, just some lingering smoke, and then watch on the left side of the screen right there. It looks like we're starting to flare up on left side of the screen right about there. So let's see if we can actually see that from the satellite imagery as well to try to figure out where that little pop-up is. It might be right on this northeastern section. Looks like we start to see some of that smoke, or down there. Hard to exactly tell. I'd say the key thing that I look at is the spot fire near Foresthill looks much, much calmer than it was 2 days ago. And a big part of the reason for that is that favorable weather forecast. So let's actually just check out the weather on the ground and then also check out that chance for some rain. I haven't looked at it since last night, and when a system is this far out, it looks like it's Sunday and Monday. The models will change a lot until like 2 days before, and then they usually seem to kind of figure everything out. But looking at Foresthill right now, so we had some below average temperatures yesterday. And I know people usually click away when I show this site, but this is the best way to figure out what the observations of weather are actually on the ground right now. It just looks like a lot, but right here we're looking at the temperature column. It's at 66 degrees right now, so not very warm, and it's almost 12 o'clock. Relative humidity is 57%. That's amazing for us. That's a lot of moisture, especially compared to not long ago when we were in the teens, when we had those triple-digit temperatures. And then winds gusting to 7, so that's less than we were at this time yesterday. Now, if we want to look at the forecast for this afternoon, humidity, oh wait, it clicked off of our fire. So we've got to figure out what our lat long is again. We'll come down here, get our latitude and longitude. Also, sorry for not keeping up with the chat too much. I always find it very difficult to talk, look at maps, and read the chat at the same time. If you ever notice me talking slowly, it's because I'm trying to read the chat, but yeah, I'll eventually get my skills up in that department, but right now still not too good. All right, so here's our lat long on the fire. So this afternoon shows relative humidity going down to 40%. That's pretty great news right there. That's a lot of moisture in the air. Temperatures staying in the 60s, so that's below average temperatures and pretty cool. And then winds shows 21 mile per hour wind gust, but that's less than yesterday. And in reality, a lot of our winds have been underperforming what the models have been showing. It does look like it's still from that southwesterly direction though, so that is still going to try to take the Mosquito fire and push it towards the northeast. So where we see a lot of that red color right there, I think that finger of the fire is where we're going to see the most growth today. A lot of that activity is actually just firing operations. And then key point around Foresthill, where we have the largest amount of structures closest to this fire, that's where our activity is significantly calmed down. And then on this kind of southern and western side, that's where we're looking just great on this fire. Not seeing any red stars, which means barely any activity left there. And then if we look at the containment map, that's where we've picked up a lot of containment on this fire. That's where you see that black line, which is great news because that was also a pretty scary situation on this fire. So overall with our weather, looks like we're cooler, moister, and less windy today. So we're looking great throughout the day today. Here's the big question mark, and that's rain. So I'm actually just going to change this to NorCal. So then I don't have to convert between Z time and American time. I think it's just -8 or something, but we'll just keep it as simple as possible. All right, so this is Saturday 5 p.m. Looks like there's some rain off the coast. Then it starts to come in Saturday 8 p.m. Then that's kind of the prefrontal showers, I'd maybe call that. Here's where it looks like the front comes in. 5 a.m. Sunday, start to get some light rain. 8 a.m. Sunday, maybe some more moderate rain. 11 a.m. Sunday, and then North Bay looks like you're picking up some decent rain at about 2 p.m. on Sunday. Some of that moves into the East Bay. What I'm mostly interested in is if we get some rain over the Mosquito fire. So still at 5 a.m. Monday, still mostly over the Bay Area and Central Coast. Then it finally starts to kind of trickle out as it gets up towards the Sierra. Oh, interesting. We have some purple there, which means a wintry mix. So, it seems like cooler temperatures are going to be coming with this trough as well. So some rain building in there. Kind of hard to tell if it actually falls over the mosquito fire. So let's go to total precipitation. And this will tell us just how much rain is expected with this system. Nothing anytime soon, but then as we get to the end of the weekend, starts to build in. That's by 8 p.m. on Sunday. We've maybe picked up a little light rain, like 1/100 of an inch over the mosquito fire at that point. 1/2 inch throughout the North Bay and San Francisco down to the Central Coast. Continue to push in actually some decent rain. So this is why this is kind of exciting. It looks like it's the first real rain of the season. We've gotten a few little rains where moisture comes up from Mexico, and it's kind of that monsoonal activity. And then we get some of those thunderstorms that'll drop a few 1/100 of an inch. This one is an actual low coming down from Alaska. That's like a more proper storm, to put it that way. And it looks like some parts of the East Bay, what's that red color? Over 2 inches of rain. So that's pretty great to see right there. And I should say this isn't going to end wildfire season, but it's certainly going to help. This will bring at least some moisture back into our soils and our fuels, and it's definitely going to help out. And then clicking through here, I would imagine the mosquito fires are right on this boundary where we get a few 1/100 of an inch of rain and then maybe a 100th of an inch of rain. So right now the models aren't showing it directly over the mosquito fire, but we'll have to keep a close eye on that because the models do change a lot when the event is this far out. So again, looks like this will be coming Sunday to about Tuesday. That looks like when the majority of this rain fell. Let's actually just go through it one more time just because this is so great to see. Haven't seen a map like this in a long time. So yeah, let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope that this system really comes through for us. Now, we haven't actually looked at too much information on the mosquito fire, so let's actually just check out watch duty. As always, there's a lot of evacuation orders and warnings still in place. I think I have one of those maps right here. So red color, that's mandatory evacuations. Yellow color, that's evacuation warnings. I put the link to Inciweb in the description of this video, and then you can click on those 2 links right there. That will take you to those evacuations, but I never go over those because by the time a lot of people watch this, the evacuations may have changed, and that could be kind of dangerous. But looking at personnel, 3,655. Significant events. Fire behavior overnight Wednesday was moderate. So yeah, that's kind of something else we were seeing on this eastern side. We still had some smoke coming off of that eastern side right there. Then, consisting of isolated tree torching, backing, and flanking, fire activity decreased after midnight as the inversion formed, but conditions did remain favorable for successful firing operations. All right, so that is something that we didn't previously know and is actually some great news. Because when it comes to these firing operations, you can really see it well. If we come up here, that whole sliver up there is a giant firing operation where they've cleared out a lot of these fuels to keep the fire from jumping up north. Hey, it looks like it's Lucy's birthday. Happy birthday, Lucy. Lucy and Robert are my 2 great moderators. They keep this chat civil and about wildfire because we're here to learn about wildfire. So happy birthday, Lucy. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for still jumping on the chat. Hope you have some fun plans later today. And let's actually check out the air quality that we're going to have for Lucy's birthday. There's still a lot of smoke coming off of the mosquito fire, but I would say it doesn't look as bad as previous days. So that's at least some good news right there. And let's actually look at the air quality map. Let's go to today. Yeah, so we still, where you see that smoke being pushed to the north by those winds, that's where we still have that very unhealthy air. But then throughout a lot of the Central Valley, that's where it's kind of moderate to unhealthy for sensitive groups. So still bad if you're in the wind path of a lot of that smoke, but not as bad as we have been in the past. And that, I guess that's not really saying much because California's had some very bad air quality in the past. So let's just come back here. So we were talking about firing operations. They had this big firing operation up here. And this was something that was actually a challenge on this fire is when we look at the overnight relative humidities. Let's just click into like 3 a.m. tonight and look at our humidity. It goes all the way up to 85%. So what was actually a challenge on this fire some days in the past was there was so much moisture in the air that they couldn't put fire on the ground to basically clear out some of these fuels. And fire is like one of the best tools that they have to fight a fire. Maybe that's where that saying, fighting fire with fire, comes from. Probably does. I don't know. If anyone knows that, let me confirm that in the chat. But there was so much moisture in previous days that they would try to put fire on the ground and it would just go out. So that's where it's some great news to hear that conditions did remain favorable for successful firing operations. And if we come in here, that actually starts to make a lot more sense on this northern edge where we see all those red stars. That's where we have the most activity on this fire right now. But given that information we just found, I'm now confident in saying that that's all firing operations going on, trying to tie in this whole circle that they have to basically just catch the fire in here, keep it from going over to the north, and then also try to keep it from going into the American burn scar. But even if it does, again, we do have that burn scar right there. So looking pretty good on that northern edge. They're doing some amazing strategy and work up there. Same with all that amazing strategy and work they did around Foresthill. I still just can't believe that they're able to stop that spot fire in its tracks right before it got to Foresthill High School. Just unbelievable. So let's just come back here. Weather concerns on Thursday and Friday. My concerns might be an overstatement just based on what we've figured out so far, but that's always the title of the section, so no criticism there. On Thursday and Friday, southwest winds continue but decrease in intensity. Love to see that, to 4 to 7 miles per hour with gusts up to 12. That's not all that bad. High temperatures and humidity should remain similar to the past several days. And that is good news as well, because the last several days we've had below average temperatures. Relative humidity has been around 40%. And the real thing that led to a lot of that activity and growth yesterday were some of those southwesterly winds. So the fact that those are even weaker, I would confidently say now that we're going to have less activity on this fire today than we had yesterday, and definitely less than we had 2 days ago when we had that big spot fire taking up towards Foresthill. Now, with that being said, when we were looking at the live shot, we did see one little plume popping up recently. Doesn't look like it's this one. I think it was actually our other camera shot right there. Yeah, so right down here, you'll see on the left side of the screen, this one plume popping up. We don't actually know if this is just normal fire, or if that's a firing operation going on, because given the favorable conditions right now, how cool and moist it is out there with calm winds, they might actually be able to do some firing operations even into the afternoon, but I can't really confirm that either. So something we haven't done yet is look at the WRF S-Fire model. This is something that we run out of the San Jose State Fire Weather Research Laboratory, and basically just takes every aspect that we've talked about so far in this video: the fuel, weather, topography, how the wildfire creates its own weather, and then it creates a simulation for what that fire is going to do throughout the day today. So all of that is maybe just a little flaw in the model, because where they're putting that fire on the ground, it looks like it's just going to be a perfect little sliver where you have the sliver coming up, then the sliver coming down. We're starting to see that over here. So it looks like they're just going to do a firing operation right along that dozer line like they did on this dozer line. So when the model's showing a lot of that burning in there, I wouldn't actually say that's accurate. Key place I'm going to be looking is at this eastern section to see how much growth the model is predicting there. Now the best way to do that is sometimes just clicking all the way on and off. So it's showing a lot of growth over the next 2 days. Main thing that I'll point out about this model is it's very good for telling you a general idea of the direction the fire is going to be moving, but it does often overestimate the growth because it doesn't take into account firing operations or dozer lines or retardant being dropped by planes because, well, frankly, you can't really put that in a model because you don't know how much or how often that retardant is going to be dropped from planes. Maybe that's the future of this model at some point, but right now, this is still pretty amazing. Do just want to show what happens throughout the day. Overnight, you notice this is 6 in the morning, all those winds are going down canyon and pushing the fire into itself. And then as you get into the afternoon hours, there's a little clock down here, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, those winds turn around from a more southwesterly direction, and then that's why it starts to push the fire towards the east. So right there, that's just kind of a good visualization of what we can expect for the day today. It's basically saying it's basically an animation for what we were already thinking, is that the most active part of this fire is going to be this finger right here, because we're going to have those southwesterly winds. Let's actually see if they've already started. Yeah. So it looks like those have already started. That's going to try to push it into where we don't have a whole lot of fire history. So overall, on the Mosquito fire, most of our growth yesterday was on the eastern side. What happened here? Fire activity. Most of our growth yesterday was on the eastern side. The spot fire around Foresthill significantly calmed down. And then when we looked at the weather forecast, we have more or similar temperature and moisture today with yesterday, which is great news because it's below average and that's our low relative humidity. That's a lot of moisture. Winds are actually lighter today. And that was one of the main things driving some of that growth yesterday. So looking great there. And then the other thing that we looked at, something else that's looking great for California, as we get into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we have potentially our first big rain event of the season coming in. So we're going to be watching that closely as well. So now that we've looked at the Mosquito fire a lot, I do just want to check out and see if there's anything on the mountain fire. So yesterday we didn't really see any activity there. Looking, goes detections, nothing. Modus and veers, nothing. So not seeing any activity on the mountain fire right now. I am just interested to see what it is officially up to. Mountain fire, 13,440 acres. They're up to 75% containment. So that looks pretty great. Fairview fire, 28,307 acres, 84% containment. And we haven't seen any activity on either of those fires recently. So looking great in there. Now, with that, I'll just take a quick look at the chat, see if I missed anything. 65 here in shaky Santa Rosa. Yeah, I heard you guys got an earthquake there yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And hey, you might get a little rainfall coming into Santa Rosa. It looks like by next Wednesday, you could have 0.5 inches. So not a huge storm or an atmospheric river by any standards, but that's something. And oh, so this is a good point. Somebody pointed out gusty before rain Saturday night. Saturday mostly sunny with a high near 78, light northwest wind becoming west 5 to 10 in the morning. Winds could gust as high as 21 miles per hour. So that is a good point, as a lot of times as these systems come in, they can bring some gusty winds with them as they're coming in. So Saturday night, let's check out some of these winds. And coming into Sunday. Oh, yes. So I'm very glad somebody pointed that out. That is why we call this Wildfire Insider. We're all sort of the Wildfire Insiders here, and we're all sort of trying to figure out what's going on with wildfire in California together, because a lot of brains are a lot better than one. And that is a key factor that I forgot about. That could end up being important on this fire, is as a front is coming in. Let's actually zoom out here and see if we can see the front come in. Let's go to 500. No, that's what we want right there. So what's bringing this chance of rain? Keep your eye on the top left right here. We're going to have this big trough coming in right there. Now, as that comes in, you notice these lines on here? Those are called isobars, lines of constant pressure. And a quick rule of thumb is that the closer those lines are together, the gustier your winds are going to be. Because you can almost think of it as like a topography map, where each one of those shows a change in pressure, and then as those are closer, it means your pressure is changing faster over a shorter distance. And then it's almost like, I always think of it like if you have a tray of water, and that tray is flat, like over Texas right here, and you pour some water on one side, the water's not going to flow very much. So the winds over Texas right now, most likely very weak. And you can actually see that looking at, if you look very closely at those arrows, there's only one little dash on there, which means it's weak winds. Whereas if you have all of these lines close together, that's basically like making your atmosphere steeper. So it's like taking that tray and then just tilting it with like a 45-degree tilt. That might be an exaggeration. And then pour water on it. It's going to flow a lot faster. So that's why as this system comes in, our pressure gradient is going to increase, and then our winds are going to increase as well. And I have seen that on some fires in the past where as a low was coming in, it brought some gusty winds and it really increased the fire activity. So right there, it looks like Saturday afternoon, we're going to have to keep a very close eye on this fire because that's the gustiest winds that we've seen on this fire from that same southwesterly direction again. And then if we look at temperature on Saturday, that's warmer than we are today, but still not too bad. And then humidity-wise, it's getting drier as well. So I was hoping that as this system was coming in, it would be bringing the moisture with it right off the bat. But right now, it looks like Saturday afternoon is going to be a day that we have to watch closely because it gets a little bit warmer. It gets, I'd say, a decent amount drier, but most importantly, it gets windier. And it's those winds that we're the most worried about because that can lead to things like spot fires where it picks up some burning embers and then tosses it out ahead of the major blaze and then leads to some growth that way, or it just pushes the fire forward, or it just supplies more oxygen to the fire. So we're going to be watching Saturday very closely. Now with that being said, once we get through Saturday, after that is when that chance of rain comes in as that system continues to move into California. So it's going to be an interesting few days. I think we'll have to just keep a very close eye on things. Overall throughout the day today though, below average temperatures, a lot of moisture out there, less wind than yesterday, so not expecting it to be an exceptional or extreme fire day. We'll still get some growth on that eastern side, but not, I would say, not as much as yesterday. And yesterday wasn't all that bad. Again, easier for me to say, but for people on the ground, it was probably terrible. But comparatively speaking to previous days, it wasn't the worst that we've seen. Saturday, though, definitely going to have to keep a very close eye on that. And then Sunday through Tuesday, looks like we'll be able to enjoy watching some rainfall return to California. So to stay updated on all that kind of information, you can subscribe to this channel, or you can also follow me on Twitter, where a lot of times, for example, this whole week, I'm going into KSBW and I'm doing the evening news there. So I'm not really able to do any more wildfire videos until after 7 o'clock. But throughout the day, I just do consistent Twitter posts, just if anything's changing or activity's picking up. So you can also follow Holt Hanley Wildfire Forecasting on Twitter as well to stay updated. So I will be back tonight with the updates on the Mosquito fire, a 10-minute video, and then also a 2-minute concise video. And then tomorrow morning, once again, we'll have some Wildfire Insider action. And thanks again for all the great comments today. That one comment especially was very important because we're going to have to watch Saturday closely. But again, I'm just hoping for that chance of rain. So once again, happy birthday, Lucy, and I hope everybody has a good day.